All right, man. So I didn't even prepare like an open or anything to sneak the guests in or nothing. I got my guy Josh Fowler from A Product of Proverbs here, and if you all have tuned into any of the pods that we've done, it, I'll tell you the stuff we talk about before and after is like the stuff that is like amazing, and the stuff that we text about is the stuff that's like, hey, let's do a pod. But sometimes we don't always get to that in the actual pod, and we almost did it again today. Like we almost like started covering topics and it turned into a 30 to 45-minute conversation before we could even give the pod. And I didn't want to do that today. So what's up, Josh?
What's going on, AC? It's good to be on camera with you. Good to have another conversation, and always good to have it on wax, you know?
Yeah, man. I'm happy to have you here. And the premise of today's pod is going to be black privilege, because so often we talk about white privilege and we talk about the struggles that black people endure, but we don't talk about the good side of being black, or some of the stuff that people just don't experience, because like both of us, I'm not going to say that we haven't experienced racism, because we have, but we live a more white collar life than a lot of the voices of the black community, and the things that they're going through, we're not going through. And our problems are similar, but we live a life that is pretty good life. So people don't want to hear us complain about being shit on in a fucking board meeting because nobody wanted to hear our perspective despite not knowing what we're talking about. They go, well, you're making this amount of money and you're doing this, so it shouldn't matter. No, you still get treated like, what Kanye said in New Slaves is that broke N-word racism is like, don't touch something, and is that rich N-word racism, hurry up and buy this. You know, it's the same thing, you know. We still get viewed as less than, but just because you may have a little more, you may be in a position to be doing better than the norm or the understood norm. And people like, nah, bro, I don't want to hear about your problems.
Bro, I got another Kanye line for you, and this one's hit hard for me because I've been in a bunch of coupes my whole life, and I drive a Benz now. But Kanye said, even if you're in a Benz, you still are in a coupe. You know what I mean? So no matter what you have societal-wise, no matter what you have success-wise, no matter what you have to differentiate yourself from the struggle, you still that. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of black privilege that come along with it. This conversation, of course, is going to be impactful and important just because as we identified via some previous content, just on the internet, on your page and everything, a lot of people like to identify with their struggle without acknowledging their privilege. You know what I mean? A lot of people like to point out what they've been through, the bad, without acknowledging the good, that, hey, man, that bad really ain't that bad in the grand scheme of things compared to what a lot of other people or some other people going through. So I'm happy to have this convo with you and looking to get into the topics for today.
And I'll tell you the super interesting part about black people who want to talk about their struggle and not acknowledge their privilege is a lot of those people live in a bubble. They are the ones who have been fortunate enough to live in nice neighborhoods. They've gone to nice schools, and some of them in our age bracket are still in school and they have not really lived life yet. And when you start hearing these perspectives, I'll sit back and I go, you sound like a white savior right now because you are trying to impact a situation that you don't fully understand. Yes, you are black, and yes, you are trying to look out for your people. And I think your heart is in the right place, but you are so far removed from black people who live that life. Like, one of the things that I've like loved about my life is I did not lose my high school friends. And my high school friends and I, we lived different lives just by virtue of it. No shade at them. We just lived different lives, different experiences. But so often I meet people who have moved away and they don't have a link back to their hometown. And like I saw a post a while back that said, I don't hate my small town, I just hate the mindset of the people in it. And I go, I don't hate the mindset. I understand that it's not my mindset, but in order for Cartersville to function, Cartersville needs the people who want to be there. or are stuck there. Like if there's nobody in Cartersville, if everybody's trying to leave Cartersville, there is no Cartersville. So I enjoy my privilege, but I also like to go back. I like to go to hole in the wall spots sometimes. I like to go to hood wing spots just so I can still feel the vibe of the people who live a life that I don't live, because I don't want to be too far removed.
Man, I can tell you personally, I haven't lived a second of my life in Emerson. I haven't lived a second of my life in Cartersville. I lived the first 2-3 years of my life in Taylorsville, which is even farther out than Cartersville. But I mean, my parents are ones that blessed me with a different opportunity. Like you said, we went to different schools. I grew up in Kennesaw. I grew up in the suburbs. I grew up in areas where I might have been the only black kid in my class. I might have been one of 5 or 10 black kids in my whole school at times. But I can realize both sides of that because my parents, as you alluded to earlier, I spent 3 to 4 days a week in Emerson. I spent 3 to 4 days a week in Bartow County, even though I never lived there. A lot of people, as you said, are too far removed from reality. Even to this day, I'm in Bartow County at least 1 day a week. You know what I mean? And my family still lives in Bartow County. I will never fix my lips to say that their struggle ain't real, that what they go through is too bad or too harsh, or that I even can relate to their struggle, because as much as I was adjacent there, I wasn't there. You know what I mean? I didn't go to those schools. I didn't live the same struggles, but also I'm there. You know what I mean? I see the struggles. I would hang out with the people and I would hear their stories from school. I would hear their stories about how they lived, how they grew up. It's a lot of classism that goes on in today's world, and a lot of people really get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? They reach so hard to identify with the class of oppressed people, a class of people that had a different experience than their lived experience, that they completely ignore their privilege. You know what I mean? They completely ignore the fact that they were afforded different opportunities. They ignore the fact that they relate more to their oppressor than the oppressed, and then they just sound hypocritical as they whine and complain about the oppression. Because what oppression did you really truly live? You know what I mean? It's just a self-awareness thing that goes on, and black privilege, as our title is, it's acknowledging your privilege. It's self-aware of your lived experience. It's self-awareness with life on both ends of the spectrum. You know. And it's something that I feel like people got to be honest with themselves and others about. You got to be honest about who you are, what you are, how you lived, and it doesn't discount anything. If you never saw the struggle and you only saw privilege, it doesn't discount your kind of desire to associate with the struggle, but at the same time, acknowledge your privilege. You know, be self-aware enough to acknowledge that struggle ain't your struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've seen, you'll see people post pictures, memes like, "Oh, if you didn't grow up on fried bologna, we're not the same." Bruh, it's okay to not struggle. It's okay. Like the goal is, some of the hardships that your parents experienced, you haven't experienced them. Some of the hardships my parents experienced, I haven't experienced them. And the goal is when we have children, they don't experience some of the same hardships that we experience, because it's all about growth and progression. Bro, I haven't eaten bologna in, I don't know, probably 20 years. Like I grew up eating it, but it wasn't because we had to eat it. It was just more of this is what's kind of like, yeah, this is what we knew to eat. But it wasn't like we couldn't afford lunch meat, or, you know what I mean? Like sandwich meat. Nah, I was just like, bro, like bologna, we fry it tastes good. But like, I don't know, man. I just think people need to become more comfortable with breaking away from the struggle. And one of the more unpopular things that I say is that, like, a lot of people who are oppressed, they want to be oppressed. Like they want to stay in the vicious cycle because of some level of identification with like being real. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bruh, you can be real and still strive for more. It's all about your values. Like there are some rich people who are real, there's some poor people who are fake. Like it's not about what you have, it's about what you're made of. And the struggle isn't for everybody. And then everybody's struggle is different. Like, because we talk about mental health so much now, and you look at our parents' generation, there weren't mental health struggles. I mean, people dealt with it, but it was not anything that was talked about. There was very little education on it. So sometimes people were going through things and they didn't even know they were going through them, and they didn't acknowledge them because there wasn't a conversation about it. But now we can't go a day without talking about mental health. And hey, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. But sometimes you'll see these things, and it's like, hey, bro, I know this may have affected your mental health, but I'm gonna need you to be a bit more resilient because life is not gonna be handed to you for everything that you do. Some things you have to work for, and bad things will happen. Like with bullying, I say all the time, a healthy level of bullying is good for kids. It helps you figure out how to deal with adversity. I look, I was a little black ass kid with messed up teeth. I got picked on. Guess what? I learned how to get funny because it's like, hey, bro, y'all gonna make jokes about me. Guess what? If I file on you first and I get everybody laughing, then I've avoided this conflict. And it's a form of conflict resolution because how do you fix your problems? But if you don't go through things, you won't learn how to fix issues.
Man, and on the flip side of that coin, I was a little light-skinned kid with good hair, so I got picked on the same way as the other side of the coin. But as you said, it's resilience, and I'm very blessed to have pledged. Because as I tell everybody, and I be talking to my girl now, she didn't pledge. She's not in any sorority, but hey, that's another conversation. But a lot of people that haven't been through a process, a lot of people that hasn't had to face adversity, that haven't had to go through a rigorous kind of exercise that builds your perseverance and builds your resilience, and they make a lot of excuses. There's no excuses. There's no excuses for your ups, your downs, your mental health wasn't a thing. If I would have showed up one night and said that, I don't know, man, I'm just a little depressed. So, you know what I mean? If I would have showed up, I got a lot of anxiety about what's gonna happen tonight. So, you know what I mean? Like it's a certain level of, yeah, you got mental health issues, but you work through them. And in the Greek organizations, most of us was founded between 1906 and 1920. Imagine the mental health issues that our founders went through in that time frame. Imagine the mental health issues that people were dealing with then within their own community, the colorism, the racism, the classism, the socialism that was going on. So you still got to get stuff done. You know what I mean? You still got to work through, and you can make that excuse and you can say, man, they don't like me because I'm this. It's hard because I'm that. Pimp or die. You know what I mean? Like, what you gonna do? You gonna just curl up in a ball and fetal position on your bed for the rest of the night, or are you gonna figure out how to accomplish your goals and make your dreams your reality? So, I get called insensitive a lot of times. I can admit that I have a lot of empathy for people. I don't have much sympathy for people. That's just a personal trait of mine that because of my lived experience, if I can empathize with your struggle, I can't really sympathize with a lot of it because what you gonna do about it? Joe Budden said on his podcast, one of the recent jokes for the past couple of weeks is, so what? Yes. What now? What next? What you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? And if you get caught in the what it was and don't move forward to solving those problems and finding solutions, you're just really making excuses and you're putting yourself in a position where you're not really going to accomplish anything. You're not going to make anything of yourself. You're not going to make anything of your life, of your dreams. And a lot of things really are excuses. As we talked about earlier, a lot of people have a lot of reasons for their struggle. They kind of associate with certain struggles and they've been through certain things and they use those to excuse their lack of growth or excuse their position in life, or even worse, and this is the most atrocious of all, is to be at a certain point in life but then use those to excuse other people as opposed to motivating them to reach the point that you're at and that you're living in. And that's not helping nobody. That's not helping you. That's not helping the people around you. and I hate to sound insensitive about it, but realistically, so what? What now? What next? What you gonna do about it? You know?
Exactly. And like all those things you talk about, like with the mental health, and you were going to pivot into some Joe Budden stuff, is that it's a reason, not an excuse. Like if you get drunk and you do some dumb stuff and you say, well, I was drunk. I go, okay, I understand why you did it, but it doesn't excuse that you did it. It's just that it provides a frame of reference for me to properly contextualize the events. So if you show up to work one day and you're not giving me your maximum output, and I say, what's going on? I have some problems with the wife at home. All right, that's great. You know, unfortunately, I hate that happens, but your wife doesn't work here and your personal problems don't work here. You work here, and I need you to be who you're supposed to be. Like when Paul George and some other NBA players came out and talked about how the bubble affected their mental health. I go, that's unfortunate. I hate that, you know, but it is your job to perform at the highest level in the playoffs. If you don't do it, I understand why you didn't do it, but I don't care. Like, I don't care that you were going through something, because you have an obligation to make something happen. And again, if you tell me, I can be understanding, and it paints a picture for me, but it does not excuse a lack of performance. So you talked about Joe Budden and the so what comment. And that so what comment was actually super dope, because the backstory was he was explaining to Jay-Z some shit that Jay-Z did when he was running the record label that like hurt his feelings or some stuff. Jay was like, okay, so what? That was whatever time ago. And now that quote resurfaced when Joe was having his issues with Rory and Mal. And honestly, I still don't know where I fall on that. I think there was just poor communication on both sides. I think Joe could have done some things better, but at the end of the day, bro, y'all are on contract, show up for work. And Joe is actually super dope for not using his non-compete against them and allowing them to create their own podcast without him, even though they have not filled their contractual obligation. But with that, Charlamagne had some comments about Joe and the way he handled that situation. Kevin Hart did as well. And I look at Kevin Hart, Charlamagne the Guy. They're like these black social elite now who they're black people who act white, and they look down on the black people who don't do things the way that they do it. Like Charlamagne talked about how Joe knows his value, but he's not good with business. He doesn't understand business. And I'm like, no, Charlamagne, he understands how to do business the way that you're doing it, but he doesn't want to do it that way. He wants all or nothing. And he will do his podcast instead of having a deal with somebody who's paying him. He's like, no, bro, like you either give me what I want or I'll do it on my own, which again, different strokes for different folks. I'm not mad at Charlamagne for utilizing his iHeart relationship to build his Black Effects podcast network. I'm not mad at him for that, because that works for him. But overall, I can't get behind someone like Charlamagne because of the way Charlamagne came into the game. He used to be brash. He used to be honest. And I'm like, yes, people need to hear this. This is dope. And then as he grew up, he grew out of that. That's fine. I'm okay with you growing out of that. But then don't talk about being a voice for Black America. I see you on CNN being our Black correspondent, creating business avenues for Black people. But then you want to turn around and shit on Black people who do not move the way that you move. Here, bro, just say that you support the people you support. Because I'm going to tell you, like, I look out for Black people. I do, but I'll also criticize Black people. And I don't ever want people to think that, you know that whole quote, I'm rooting for everybody Black. I'm not rooting for all y'all niggas. Be honest, I'm not. Because all y'all don't deserve to be rooted for, because you're not putting in the work to get what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't root for you just because you're Black, or I can't not criticize you just because you're Black, because the idea of us sticking together, yes, maybe, but the Black issues, the black agenda is so broad that I can't just subscribe to what you believe because we share skin, because we may not share beliefs, we may not share values, we may not share morals, like all of that. So what do you Kwame Brown called Charlamagne now, and you've been consuming Kwame Brown. So what is your take on these people in the media? And I think you have three totally different figures and personalities. I think Joe and Kwame are a bit more similar, but they're still different because Joe is he's still a little corporate. Then you got Charlamagne, who's totally corporate. What are your thoughts on the state of black media right now?
To start off, I don't agree with Charlamagne and hardly nothing he got going on. Part of the reason for that is that even in his Black Podcast Network, he's signing Black independent businesses to iHeartRadio. So he's essentially a funnel for Black independents to route into the white structure. And I hate to make all this racist or any race involved or color involved or anything, but essentially, let's say 85 South Show been running up millions of views. They've been running up all their stuff. Let's say All the Smoke made a whole platform for themselves. And then they signed with the Black Podcast Network. But the Black Podcast Network funnels into iHeartRadio. They've now lost a piece of their independence to profit share with these other people. They sold their farm and now they're sharecroppers. I've been antagonist in my fraternity's group for the last couple of weeks just because I, unfortunately, to most people around me, I follow the teachings of Dr. Umar Johnson. A lot of people got a bunch of different feelings and thoughts about Dr. Umar, but for me, that kind of makes sense. And Kwame Brown is more so aligned with Dr. Umar. He's more so aligned with independence. You know, Kwame Brown made $16 or $60-something million throughout his playing career. He don't need money from these people. He can say whatever he want to say. Joe Budden made a certain amount of money from his rap career. Most of that was gone before his podcast career. So he really needs to like toe the line and kind of play sides to determine how he sustains and then how he gets his creativity off. Charlamagne was broke before them folks gave him money. You know what I mean? So all of his is from someone else. So it's different avenues to it. And with that, I have a thorough and complete understanding of how it works. And I understand that partnership is key to a success and sustainability. But in black media right now, we have a lot of the black media that will speak their whole truth. They are not controlled or tied to any other media outlets. You know what I mean? Those people, they can't input on their message. They can't tell them how to talk, what to say. They can't influence anything about them. They're completely and wholly independent. So they can say whatever they want to say. That's the Dr. Umar. That's the Kwame Brown. There's not too many other examples I know of because it's a very small, select group. Even myself, I got a podcast and I got to watch what I say with my podcast because my CEO listens to some of my stuff. So if he mess around and get the wrong wind or some stuff, my livelihood would be intact or in kind of danger. It could be in where I might have an issue on the back end for stuff I say. So I'm in the more Joe Budden area where, yes, a certain level of independence, but you need advertisers, you need sponsors, you need people that fund your vision, your dream. So you can maybe push your line on a certain aspect or a certain area, but on the other end, you gotta watch what you say because you mess with the wrong people, and you have to deal with those consequences. And then you have the Charlamagnes, the Stephen A. Smiths, even the Shannon Sharps. You know what I mean? Even all these people that have to fit in someone else's agenda. You know what I mean? Like you say the wrong thing, and that's case closed for you. You know what I mean? Everything that your whole platform, your whole livelihood is determined by someone giving you something for what you say. So if you say what they don't want you to say, they cannot give you what you want them to give you. So in black media right now, we have a couple of different avenues you can take. And as you can see, the Kwame Brown and Dr. Umar lane is hard. They're going to throw the whole media kit at you. They're going to throw all the distractions. They're going to throw all the detractors. They're going to throw everything they got at you to silence you, to make sure that you're discredited, to make sure that you can't be as widespread as you like to be, as you need to be. Then you got the Joe Buddens where they'll help you, but if you get out of line, they're going to pull back. And if you work with them, they'll continue pushing you forward. And then you got the Stephen A. Smiths where I wish you would say something, and then you know that it's all over for you. You go back to nothing. You know what I mean? So it's a tricky place to be in, but realistically, we got to acknowledge the Black privilege in all of them, that they have a voice. You know, Shannon Sharp, Stephen A. Smith, they have a voice for themselves where they have a certain privilege in the fact that they can actually voice a piece of their opinions. They can shape their opinions and then influence the masses with how and what they think. Joe Budden has a certain privilege to where he can push the line a little bit more further because he adds a little bit more value and he has a little bit more independence and he knows how to get it his own way out the mud. And then you have the privilege of Kwame Brown that Dr. Umar doesn't share. Kwame Brown made $60 million. He probably owns his house. He owns his mama's house.
He owns his tractor.
Yeah, his tractor. He owned that truck. He owned everything that he working with. And he can say whatever he want to say and can't nobody take what he owns from him. Dr. Umar is still asking for donations to help him with stuff. So he can say what he want to say, but now you see the impact of saying what you want to say. Privilege is understanding that where you're at in life, what you have, whether it's education, whether it's socioeconomic status, whether it's assets, whether it's comfort, whether it's security, that affords you the privilege to say what you want to say and how you want to say it. I mean, and that's the thing. I joke with people and say that God ain't made me super rich yet because I'd probably be off the deep end. I'd be saying the craziest stuff, the things that I think, things I want to say, but I know I can't and won't say because it's going to impact my livelihood. But if my livelihood was set in stone, you get a completely different message from me. And that's what we get from Kwame Brown right now. That's what we will never get from Stephen A. Smith. You know what I mean?
Bro, it's funny you say that because I tweeted last week. Y'all think I'm wild. Now y'all look, just wait till I get security. And again, the security piece insinuates that I'm rich because I can afford to pay people to be around me. A few things. You talk about the discrediting of like a Kwame Brown or a Dr. Umar Johnson. And what I really hate about the media machine is that when you have a Kwame Brown, you have a Umar Johnson. You know what? I'm going to put Kyrie Irving in that same category because Kyrie's to the point to where he's like, I've made enough. I have this Nike deal. And guess what? I'm so good at what I do. Somebody's going to want me despite how I feel about things, right? And I can disagree with a lot of stuff that they say. Like I'm gonna sit here and say like I subscribe to their beliefs necessarily, but I just subscribe to the way they go about their lives and that they are unapologetically themselves, and they say what they're gonna say. And you have people who discredit them, and what they do is they take the voices that we care about and have them speak negatively on them. And it bothers me because, especially when you talk about the sports people and the way it happens in sports media, is if you watch, say, a debate show like Undisputed that Shannon Sharp is on, or First Take that Stephen A. Smith is on, well, those terrible white producers and show creators, when you listen to their topics, you go, bro, who made this topic? How is this a topic? Sorry, look, I don't want to hear Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless do a 30-minute segment on race. Like, not that it's not a good conversation, because with the reach that they have for some of the conversations, I think it's really important. And I appreciate having a Shannon Sharp, especially more so than a Stephen A. Smith, but Shannon Sharp, a former player, somebody from the country, you know, speaking openly on a national platform about the perspective of a Black man. But I got into it with some friends yesterday in a group text, and they were talking about the way Shannon Sharp smokes had a Black and Mild and the Henny and all of that stuff. And they like had a big issue with it. And I go, I cannot like it, but if that's who he is and he bringing that to work, I don't have an issue with it. And they're like, well, you know, it's the white man's agenda just trying to show Black people in a negative light. And I go, maybe, or he drives a big enough rating that he can allow himself to do stuff that's comfortable to him. Like, I was watching an episode and I watched Snoop Dogg give him a sack on the show. Every time Snoop come up there, oh yes, Shannon Skip, I got a gift for you. And Shay say, like, oh yeah, boy, that Snoop had me up there with them giraffes. You know what I mean? It's like, I appreciate stuff like that because that's how we talk. That's the stuff that we do as a community together. And to see it on a national platform, and then to see somebody be able to go from talking about a serious subject or provide like decent analysis on a sports, but then be like, shit, boy, I'm on that hit dog tonight, Skip. It's like, hey, we've been code switching for so long that we think we have to code switch. Yep. And what Shannon is doing, Shannon and Jalen Rose, they ain't code switching. And again, they work for the major networks, so obviously they are in a box because FCC, this, that, and the third. Like I understand that they are in a box, but how many of us are not in a professional box? You know what I mean?
Kwame Brown is nobody's box.
No, because he done made it $60 million, and he like, bro, I'm tired of y'all telling. I was having a conversation with a friend today, and one of the things that I'm loving about athletes having their own platforms, which again, I wish less of them did because it's clogging the space for somebody like me. But they are tired of the traditional media telling their stories and telling their stories the wrong way. It's like Steph Curry. I talked about this a week or so ago. And I talked about how once Steph Curry rose to prominence, the media ate him up because they talked about how relatable Steph is. And I go, LeBron is more relatable to me than Steph is. And they talk about Steph's size. I go, Steph is still 6'3". I was like, but Steph grew up, son of an NBA player. If Steph wanted to go pro in golf and he didn't play basketball, they say he's that good. Like, I've heard multiple people talk about, like, Steph can hit pro shots. He doesn't hit them consistently because he's working on three-pointers and not his golf game. I go, Steph grew up rich. I don't relate to that. But you all who tell the story can relate to that because that's where you come from. That's what your friends come from. And then you say, well, no one can relate to LeBron being 6'8", 250 pounds, and just a natural freak athlete. I go, I know people who are natural freak athletes and they just didn't get it figured out. I know people who moved around from house to house, had to live with coaches just to make sure that they were able to be somewhere where they could get to school every day. Again, I didn't live that life, but I saw it. So I relate far more to a LeBron, a KD, your typical black athlete because they go through typical black stuff than a Stephen Curry. And guess what? At 29, I love to play golf.
Hey man, next time you in the A, we gotta hit the links because I'm on my golf tip too. So I didn't know you was a golfer, so we got to make that shake.
I mean, I started during the pandemic because I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything, and it was like the only physical thing I can do. I'm absolutely terrible, but I enjoy it.
Same.
Beautiful. I keep my clubs in the truck.
Same.
Black privilege. We can go play golf.
Right. And see how crazy would we be to be on this screen right now talking about all the social injustice, talking about all the police brutality. I had my fair share of run-ins with the police and even some brutality moments. But how crazy would I be to be up here talking like I really deal with hardcore struggles? You know what I mean? And that's kind of the conversation that we had that led into this podcast is the fact that a lot of people in the upper class, the upper middle class, the people that live privileged lifestyles, that were able to get education, that were able to live in two-parent households, that were able to live in certain communities and be afforded certain opportunities, they really don't ever speak a word about that. They don't say anything about the upbringing. They don't say anything about their acceptability in white society and white culture. They don't say anything about the favor that God has given them and that he's shown through their acceptability and means to gain economic kind of prosperity and means to gain certain things in life that other people aren't afforded. But they'd rather speak about, they identify a struggle, whether it be, and it's a lot of division that goes on. So whether it be, okay, well, I'm light skinned, that's my struggle. Or I'm dark skinned, that's my struggle. Or I'm a woman, that's my struggle. I'm a straight black man, that's my struggle. Or I'm in higher education. I've made a podcast, or one of my little videos that I do under my podcast, where I said, I can't go to Georgia Tech and be like, man, there's not enough black people here. It's more than enough black people in Morehouse. You know what I mean? If I want to be around black people, you understand that there's a place for black people, but you went somewhere else. Don't try to make somewhere else somewhere that it's not. You need to understand the privilege that you have to choose your path in life. You know what I mean? So if you go to a certain university, if you go to a certain social setting, if you go somewhere, you're afforded the privilege of being able to afford that opportunity. Don't complain about the opportunity because you want to associate with the struggle that you don't truly live. A lot of struggles aren't evenly weighted. I like an average weighted scale. I like to say that this type of struggle or this type of thing weighs 0.8. This type of thing weighs 0.2. So yeah, you might go through 2.2 struggles, but you're still half of 1.8 struggle. You know what I mean? If you do an average weighted scale on things, people just be complaining. You know what I mean? People just be wanting to find a way to make an excuse or make a complaint or be contrarian to life. But acknowledge your black privilege. Acknowledge the privilege that you've been afforded. Acknowledge the place that you're at. Acknowledge the fact that you're one of the higher earners. Acknowledge the fact that you're one of the privileged or one of the elite. But don't try to change your struggle so that, okay, yeah, there's someone that grew up poor and black and without family and without opportunity. If you gay, you're not the same struggle as that person. You know what I mean? If you're a woman, you're not the same struggle as that person. If you're a feminist and you think that the cis male gender is just so oppressional, you're not the same struggle as those people that the police beat up 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to equalize struggles that aren't equal. You have to be realistic and self-aware enough to acknowledge the privilege that you live with in life. I texted my girl before this. I said, I'm probably going to get canceled after this interview, but they can't really cancel me because they try to. Because I told her, they've been trying to cancel me since high school because I've always had a kind of contrarian view, and I've always spoken my mind, and I've always said things that may not be the most politically correct or may not be the most societally acceptable. But so what? What you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? Are you going?
The thing though is you're always able to articulate what you're thinking well and make it make sense. So even if I can disagree with something that you say, but you make it make sense, and you get into your thought process of where it comes from, and it goes, okay, no, this is not just some wild contrarian view or a hot take. This was well thought out. It's just not something that a lot of people like. Like, I mean, hell, you joked around about the whole toxic masculinity podcast, and it's like, yeah, we could do that on Patreon, but like, wouldn't do it here because y'all would take it a totally different way. It's like 2 things can be true, like. And like what I really appreciated when you talked about the Georgia Tech thing, about there needs to be more black people here. And maybe more black people should apply. Maybe more black people should put themselves in a position to go there, or just not go there but not complain about it, because it's hard to go in somebody's house and tell them how to decorate it.
Man.
Because if somebody's coming here,
even more, you asked to be invited to somebody's house. They didn't even invite you. You say, can I come over? And then they say, okay, cool, you can come over. And then you come over and start pointing out what's wrong with their house.
I'm going to kick you out.
Where does that make sense?
In the mind of oppressed people, because they'd much rather be invited to your house and try to take it over instead of just building their own house the way they want it. And that's where, when you talk about the Dr. Umar stuff, his big picture things of creating our own subculture within American culture, a freestanding subculture in American culture, I totally agree with. One of the reasons why I haven't been like searching for ads and stuff like this on this podcast and really trying to monetize it is because I want to talk about what I want to talk about when I want to talk about it. Like, I don't want my advertiser saying, we don't really like where you went with that one. Well, sorry. And I'm in a position to where I need the advertisers more than they need me. I'm not Stephen A. Smith who drives the numbers. If Stephen A. decided that he wanted to be done with ESPN and speak his mind freely, he could do that. You know, one thing I appreciate about a Jason Whitlock, I don't like much of what he says, but he is authentic. Now, listen, he's authentic to who he is, and he's still creating content in a more independent fashion because he's like, bro, I'm going to talk about what I'm comfortable talking about. And again, I don't agree with the things that he says, but I respect that he wants to be himself and he's going to do it. We talk about wanting to see black people be great, but we typically only root for the black people that we agree with. And I try not to do that. I can disagree with you wholeheartedly, just like we talked about with Charlamagne. Like, I think it's disgusting that he creates a black podcast network that's a phone to the white man's pocket. That is gross to me. Like, you are pimping black talent to increase the white man's wealth. That's gross.
While increasing your wealth at the same time.
Exactly, but
you're a slave catcher. You're a slave catcher. That's what you are. Here we go, Massa. Let me stop because I got a job. Let's keep going.
But that's what it is, though, and it's disgusting to see. And then when somebody comes out and disagrees with it and calls it for what it is, you want to say, "Well, you don't understand because I'm getting this bag, bro." It's not about just the bag; it's how you get it and where it goes. Like Kwame Brown and like many other professional athletes. They take the white man's money and they are free to do with it whatever they want. And a lot of them put it back into our communities. And it's great to see that happen because you are displacing wealth. That's beautiful. But don't take from our community to put into the pockets of those who need it. And I say all of this while being open to taking a job at iHeart as an employee. But if you ever think that I'm going to bring content to a platform, like my independent content to a platform outside of a radio show, you're crazy. Like, I'm just not doing it. Like there's like, we can talk about it on here. Like right now I'm in this online certificate program about TV and TV and video journal movies type stuff, right? Like TV and film. Just because like I want to create docs. Bruh, you're not getting a documentary or oral history from me like through a company. Like, it's just not happening. Like, I'm not doing it. I'll go be a personality for name that radio station, name that big name. I'll be a personality, sure. But I'm still going to podcast independent from your company. I'm still going to create my content independent from your company. Again, Charlamagne does do things independent from iHeart, which is dope. It's like, oh yeah, you're diversifying your funds, you're doing different things. We're seeing the real you on your podcast with Andrew Schultz, which is also nasty, where you get on there and you trash black culture with a white man.
I have Charlamagne is nasty. Charlamagne. Charlamagne's a nasty human being. I read Charlamagne's book, the first one. Charlamagne's a horrible human. I don't want to be the voice of reason here, but Charlamagne is he's a coon, bro. I don't know if I can say that on this platform. No, you can say whatever you want. Like I still curse on the pod. He's a coon. He's a coon. He's a coon in Malcolm X clothing. But see, that's the thing is sheep are. My mom did a whole kind of study on sheep and lambs, and because biblically, the shepherd and everything that goes into that, sheep are some pretty dumb animals, but and they're very stuck in their ways, and they listen to instructions and order and follow herds. They're just naturally, DNA is driven in that way. But Charlamagne is a wolf in sheep's clothing, but his sheep's clothing isn't good. You know what I mean? Like, you know how you see at a 90s party, and then there'll be somebody of another culture that comes in. that just doesn't look really 90s, and you're like, hey, that's a bad outfit. Charlamagne wears a bad outfit. If you look at it just kind of open-mindedly and even analytically, and just kind of look at it objectively, and you see that Charlamagne, he contradicts himself on every turn. Charlamagne is very disrespectful. Charlamagne is very, as much as he preaches mental health, he completely disregards the mental health of others outside of how are you, or outside of a couple of lines within the interview. But the rest of the interview is making someone's mental health even worse. You know what I mean? The most of his career is making someone's mental health worse than better. But then if he asks you and says his 1 or 2 lines about mental health, he kind of puts on a bad outfit that this is his purpose. You know what I mean? But if your purpose was mental health, you wouldn't have said the last 48 minutes of stuff you said. You wouldn't have done the last 10 years of stuff you did.
You wouldn't do donkey up. You wouldn't do donkey of the day. There's no way you can be caring about people's mental health and doing a segment called donkey of the day,
where you essentially pick one person every day to drive to a worse mental health state by acknowledging their flaws in front of the entire country. You know what I mean? It's a lot of hypocrisy that goes into that, but a lot of people are in stuff for entertainment. So they're never going to think about past the laughs. They're never going to think about the intention. I'm big on intention. On what's your why? You know what I mean? And a lot of stuff is, if you ask Charlamagne why, I don't think he would be able to have a good answer. In my business communications class, they were talking about how when someone asks you a question, it should be a short answer. You got 20 seconds. More than likely, you should answer their question in the first sentence. And then you might add some context, but realistically, it should be the shortest answer possible. Charlamagne would talk in circles because he doesn't know his answer. A lot of people would talk in circles if you ask them their why, if you ask them their rationale behind or their intention behind what they're doing. They don't know their intention because they're conflicted, because their personal part,
or they're hiding it.
They're hiding it, and realistically, I like honesty. One of my biggest role models is Nipsey Hussle, as I always share on every platform. I don't know if y'all can see it here, I got the marathon flags tatted, and all type of Nipsey Hussle is the reason why, along with my parents, along with God, while I am who and where I am today. But Nipsey Hussle wasn't conflicted in nothing. He gave you an answer straight up. He'd tell you what it is. He knew himself. He knew his circumstance. He knew his situation. He knew his intention. He knew his objective because he was pure. And it's a certain thing about a pure energy and a pure heart that doesn't allow for you to be conflicted. You know what I mean? You might run into instances where you have to fight the good and the bad within you. There's a yin and yang to everything. There's good and bad, bad and good. And you might be conflicted internally on which side you're representing, but you know in your heart who and what you are. You know what I mean? If you know God, if you know yourself, then you're not too conflicted. But if you are confused that God, is your God Yahweh or is your God iHeart? You're conflicted. You know what I mean? Like that's where confliction comes in. And I look at intention, and that's why Charlamagne don't really get too much respect for me. That's why a lot of mass media don't get too much respect for me. Kanye West, the Runaway movie, it's a great movie. If no one's ever seen it, it complements his album. But when he was sitting with his Phoenix girlfriend that wasn't used to Earth, she was watching the news. She says, rule number 1, never believe anything you see on the news. You know what I mean? So if you're conflicted, it's probably because you're being misguided intentionally. And whether it's the person that's guiding you down the wrong path, if they're doing that intentionally or intentionally, they're guiding you down the wrong path. So you gotta check your heart. You know what I mean? You gotta check your core, check your fabric, your fiber of your being. Who are you? What are you made of? And what does that allow for you to do to and for your people? You know?
And be honest. Like, just be honest about who you are. Like, and to use Charlamagne as the example, if a lot of the stuff that he says wouldn't bother me if he didn't profess to be an agent of mental health. Like, I would just not care. Like if you're just saying this stuff, it may be offensive. It may rub people the wrong way. Okay, so what? But you're not professing to be more than what you are. It's like the guy who's always super nice to the girl, but you already know what he on. Like, bro, you know, you deserve to be treated better than that. Whoop whoop whoop. Yeah, that guy don't mean you no good. Maybe he don't, but it ain't your place to say it because all you trying to do is the same thing I'm doing. You just mad that I'm doing it and you ain't. You know what I mean? Like, just be open and honest about your intentions, man, and we're good. Like, I bring people on to talk about topics that I'm not good with, right? Like, I'm gonna do a mental health awareness piece again. I'm gonna bring some different people on to talk about it. But part of that is just for me to learn some things and to educate the audience. But what we're not going to walk away from any of those conversations is saying that, hey, I'm an agent for mental health, because I'm not. I'm not. Like, I'm not wired that way, because like we talked about earlier. So what? Okay, you're dealing with this. I got it. I'm not saying you shouldn't deal with it, but it doesn't excuse your inability to do what it is that you need to do. And call me insensitive, call me wrong, but I'm going to stand on that. And again, it's not that I don't think mental health exists. I just think it's just like physical health, man. You got to work on it. You got to work on it. Are you going to a therapist? Are you doing your yoga? Are you woosah? Do you know what makes you happy? Do you know what makes you tick? And like a lot of people, they lack self-awareness. They don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they want to do. If I ask you right now, like, what is it that you want out of life? Where do you want your life to go? I know you're not going to have to think about that question. If you ask me the same question, I'm not going to think about my answer because I already know what it is. I want to be one of the loudest, most authentic voices on airwaves. I want to be a great father. Everything else, those are the only two things that really matter.
A lot of people, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but most people aren't wired for mental health because mental health is something that, what's the right way to put this in a way that won't get me canceled?
Fuck cancel culture.
No, I can't say that because they didn't. As I was talking to my girl earlier, they've been trying to get me out the paint since high school. My 10-year class reunion is up in next year, actually, and ever since high school, I've been a person that I really just didn't care. I spoke the truth. I spoke my truth. I spoke honesty. I spoke my reality. And if that didn't align with your reality, so what? Because if you spoke your reality and it didn't align with my reality, so what? I'm not really that impacted by a lot of things, but mental health is one of those things that matters, but it isn't the top of the priority poll. You know what I mean? Like, if your mental health is bad, but you can feed yourself, you're going to live. If your mental health is bad and you can keep a roof over your head, you're going to live. If your mental health is bad and you can take care of and provide for your kids and your family, you're going to live. But if your mental health is good and you can't do any one of those three things, you won't live. So rationally, mental health is lower on the totem pole of priority. I think it's Maslow's needs, the hierarchy of needs in psychology. I'm not a psychology major. I took one class, but Maslow said that there's a certain hierarchy for what you need. And if those needs aren't met, there's a certain detriment to your livelihood. And as you go down the hierarchy, it's less of a detriment to your livelihood. And I think your mental health is lower on that hierarchy. You know what I mean? Like, you got to sustain life. You got to be able to take care of yourself. You got to be able to feed yourself. You got to be able to shelter yourself. You got to be able to provide for yourself. And if it takes a hit to your mental health to be able to sustain life,
Only comfortable people have time to care about their mental health,
and that's the root of this conversation. There was another interview, there was another podcast in which people were just kind of going in, and certain people might be in certain socioeconomic statuses. Certain people might be in certain education levels, and certain people may be at a certain level of comfort. They may have certain privileges throughout life, but then they're the loudest. This woke culture, the woke people are the most comfortable people in history. Somebody on Section 8 are struggling to pay their bills. They don't have time to be woke. But somebody that is very comfortable and in the upper echelon of life and on an upward trajectory to success, they have a lot of free time to think about what's wrong in culture, what's wrong in society, to be more woke, to solve more problems. Them ain't even your problems. You know what I mean? Like,
and the people who have those problems don't
care.
Process them the way that you think they do.
They don't care. It's not really a problem to them. It's just life. You know what I mean? Like, it sucks to see it, but I get upset with that. As I said, I subscribe to the Dr. Umar Johnson line of thought, and our upper middle class is killing the lower class because we'll take our comfort. We'll take our success. We'll take our experience in America and discount their experience in America, their lack of success, their lack of comfort. And we'll say, everything is great. Everything's good. Look at me. I'm doing okay. Why can't you do okay? Be self-aware. Acknowledge your Black privilege. Acknowledge the fact that your upbringing, your education, your acceptability in society is why you're so okay. You got to be real with yourself. You got to be real with others. And a lot of people just aren't being real with either group of people. They're not being real with themselves. They're not being real with other people. And then they end up talking down on people. They end up talking to people or talking at people as opposed to talking to people. You talk to people and understand. You talk at people for them to understand you. Y'all don't live the same life. They'll never understand you. But if you talk to them, you'll understand them, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of those people don't want to actually like get on that level with the people who they're speaking for. I remember when I was at Morehouse, they would do voter registration drives on campus, and I go, only about 30% of Morehouse's campus is Georgia, is from Georgia in state. So 70% of your students don't live here. So why would they register to vote here? Now, the West End is Georgia natives, people who are residents of Atlanta, people who are less informed because they are busy living their lives in the West End of Atlanta. Set up your voter registration booth a half a mile away than where you're doing it, because who gives a damn on campus? We're informed. We know that we're supposed to vote. Now, whether or not we vote or not, that's between us and God. But we are educated and we know better. We're on a college campus, for God's sake, right? Go to the people who need it. No, you don't want to go out there. It's sketchy in the West End. You know, something might happen to you. And you know what? Here's what I've learned. If you are in the hood doing good things for the right reasons, people aren't going to bother you. If they know you on a school kid, they be like, oh yeah, I see you out there, man. You keep doing that. Yeah, boy, we appreciate what you're doing out here. They ain't gonna bother you, but you don't know that because you didn't go to the hood. You didn't go talk to them people. You never had anybody ask you for a lighter. You know what I mean? So you just give them a lighter so they can smoke their cigarette real quick. You smoke your Black and Mild with them, and then y'all have a conversation because it's like, all right, man, what's happening? You haven't done that because why? Because you want to speak up. You want to speak up here and speak down to these people who you want to help. But how can you help somebody if you don't know what they're going through? If you don't meet them, like you talk about how you go to Emerson once a week. Going to Damascus keeps you grounded because you get to see everyday rural Black America. You don't lose that. People ask me sometimes, how come you always go to Cartersville when you take time off from work? Bro, sometimes I just have to go be refreshed. Like I have to feel people who are living a life that I don't live anymore. It's because I want to be a voice of the people. How can I be a voice of the people if I don't stay close to the people? You look at our favorite artists. Oh yeah, that first album was great, bro. Then they got Hollywood. Yeah, because their life became Hollywood. You talk about comedians. Yeah, most comedians, once they get money, they get terrible. Yes, because people identify with struggle. We do. And we talk about everybody wants to come from the struggle, but people, the average American identifies with some form of struggle. Once you are no longer living that struggle, the stuff that you talk about, I don't relate to. Guess what? The loudest voices in media are rich, and they only hang out with other rich people. So guess what happens when rich people get together and they hang out? They do rich people stuff. And how the hell can you how can you be a voice of reason for me? How can you be the person who takes what's happening in a world that I don't get to experience to tell me the story, but you are so far removed from where I am that you can't even tell the story in the words that I want to hear? Like, especially like the fact that ESPN is supposed to be a news network or sports news network, but they have negotiated deals with all the major sports leagues. You're not getting real journalism. Because if you come out and talk bad about the NFL, you do like Bill Simmons did, where he came out and called out Roger Goodell for Deflategate, you get fired or your contract doesn't get renewed. You know what I mean? Like, you can't mix business and journalism together. If you want true journalism, bro, you should be a journalist to pay your bills. Like that's it. Like, rich journalists don't work.
Man, I tell you, and speaking to the fact or the point of say how I stay in touch with the people. I'm in a group meet with my fraternity brothers and my fraternity Phi Beta Sigma, a Pi Alpha chapter here at Georgia State University. And it's downtown, and it's made of a bunch of people from a bunch of different regions, from Gwinnett, Snellville, East Atlanta, me and Kennesaw, all type of people from all over that come together. Then we mess around and get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? We'll get into a upper class type of situation where we are used to our experiences, and a lot of them don't stay in touch with the experiences of people out that they came from. You know what I mean? Like my cousins that I grew up with, my family that I grew up with, friends from high school. As you said earlier, my best friends are two of my high school friends. I've known them since I was 15 years old. They're my best friends today, like to present date. You know what I mean? And the lives of the people aren't the same as the lives of these people that got bachelors and MBAs, and these people that's making six figures, and these people that's traveling all over the world, and these people that's buying homes and buying Teslas and buying Benzes and living the good life, buying Rolexes and doing all of these materialistic and upper echelon kind of bougie type things. But if they only surround themselves with other people doing those type of things, as you said, they're completely out of touch with the other people. So for the most part, they don't really know or stay in touch with their hoods. I got one of my frat brothers. He stays in his hood, and he's helping kids with food drives. He's helping them with toy drives, with back to school drives. This is one of my frat brothers. A lot of the other ones is living good. You know, we got high rises. We taking trips. We booking flights to Panama on a random Wednesday. You know what I mean? Like things like that separate us from normal people. But you're separated from normal people, so you don't really identify with their struggles. And a lot of that, like you said, you got to stay grounded. If you're not grounded, then who are you to speak on behalf of these people? Who are you to speak to these people's issues? Who are you to speak to these people's livelihood? Who are you to even understand what these people need? Even to myself, like I go back once a week. I ain't seen a lot of my cousins in 12 months. I don't know what they need. Some of them got kids. Some of them ain't got kids. Some of them work jobs. Some of them in careers. Some of them went to school. Some of them didn't go to school. I don't know them anymore because I've went into a different circle of people. But I do know that as a whole, what the community kind of needs for themselves, you know, like, and I can look at things that my community and the other levels have, the opportunities that's afforded them, the resources that they have. I mean, I can know what's not there for the other. So that's an internal conflict for myself always, is that if one had, all should have. If one person can do this, all should do this. and thinking about opportunities or ways to give those people access to the things that other people have. That's not a
Well,
conversation or thought pattern that a lot of people in my circle have because they're not
no,
grounded.
no, because the idea is that you make it, you move to the suburbs, and you forget about everybody else. But one thing I'll say about you is you are open about your blind spots. Like you'll see here, like again, the topic of this podcast is black privilege because we're speaking about privilege that black people have, and privately we talked about some of our black privilege things. It's like, yeah, bro, I don't go through that shit, so like I can't meet you there because I don't know it. But you're honest about not knowing it, and it's okay that you don't know it. You know, like it's cool to not know it. So I think that I don't know, man. Here's something I want to ask you about though. What are your thoughts on Kevin Samuels?
Aha. Hey, man, can I take a quick second off mic and off camera to get myself together before I ask this question or answer this question? Because it's gonna be a loaded answer real quick.
Okay. Take your time.
I know we're live. I hate to mess up your live stream.
No, you take your time, and I'll just start talking.
Say less. I'll be right back.
All right. So I think Kevin Samuels is super important to the community. I think that he is somebody who has opened up a platform, but he does not need the platform like many people who have platforms, right? He's appeared to have made his money elsewhere corporately, and now he's at a place where he can comfortably live and openly speak on his ideas on relationships and it's specifically in the black community. And he's harsh, he's brash, but for the most part, I think he's honest. And he provides a level of honesty that a lot of people don't ever get in their lives, you know. I think that so many people think they're more valuable than they are. They think they're more important than they are. And a lot of us, we just exist here in this big thing called the world, this thing called life. And we're significant to our parents. We're significant to maybe our significant others. We're significant to our children, but we're not as significant as we think we are. And then when you think about the number of men versus the number of women on this earth, right? There's more women than men on this earth. So then when you are a man and who's an accomplished man, and you're decent looking and you're 5'9" or taller, you can get really picky. And I'm sorry, like there are less of me. What did Kanye say?
It's only
There's
one
a lot of you, but only one of me.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? So like, and when you live that way and you learn that there's only one of you and a lot of y'all want me, but I don't want a lot of y'all, I can move from a place of power. You know, it's one thing when you're 16 and you don't even know what you're doing out here, and they can hold that thing they can hold it from you like a horse chasing a carrot, and you just doing everything just to bite at it. But it goes, baby, I want more than just like I can have your body, and if I just want a body, I could this body yada all over this place. You know what I mean? But what I think that Kevin Samuels does is he has the conversation that men have together, and he's having it with women.
So one of the texts that I sent, or my girl sent me before this, where she said specifically, "Try not to get canceled tonight." So I've been avoiding, as you can see, I do a daily video on the Product of Proverbs. I hate to shamelessly plug, but the Product of Proverbs on Instagram. Me and my dad ain't doing the podcast now because I'm in Atlanta doing MBA stuff, doing all of my things, and then helping him with virtual church. He's doing virtual church, virtual Bible study, getting all of this stuff together. So we've kind of put the podcast on the back burner, but I still give out daily nuggets on Instagram of just wisdom and kind of similar things that we would talk about on the podcast. But I've intentionally stayed away from Kevin Samuels, Derrick Jackson, even Kwame Brown. I was not prepared to be asked about my input on Kevin Samuels tonight. For Kevin Samuels, I can say I'll keep it real because that's all I know how to do. The brother talks a lot of realism. A lot of people are very delusional. A lot of people are very entitled. A lot of people have certain expectations in life. I mean, even since I was maybe 18 years old, I always had a saying with my frat brothers because they have high expectations for a party or a girl coming over or whatever it was. And I say expectations lead to disappointment. If you have no expectations, you can't be disappointed. If you have
Hey,
high expectations, you have a lot to fall from.
hey, real quick on that. Similarly, high school, college, we having a party and people have expectations. My expectation would be to get drunk, and guess what? I can control that before the party starts because I got the liquor.
You had you had a low expectation, and so you had low disappointment. You know what I mean? If your expectation was to get drunk and have a threesome, then more than likely most of your nights will end up disappointing. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it goes. The higher the expectation, the more the disappointment. It's a bigger gap between those. So for Kevin Samuels, whew, I don't subscribe to this brother. I don't watch most of his live streams. I've seen some of the viral clips. I watch some of the content he produces. My little brother, hate to put him on blast, but he's watched Kevin Samuels recently. I mean, it's really impacted his life positively. This man has gotten to school. He's cut off his hair from the young N word kind of crazy mop top. He got a low cut. He's looking very professional. He's got a 2 or 3 promotions at his job. He's working towards being a high value man. So Kevin Samuels has some positive and some negative. There's always positive and negative in everything. A battery has positive and negative. If your battery was 2 positives, it wouldn't work. If your battery was 2 negatives, it wouldn't work. So for Kevin Samuels, I see the positive and negative in his messages, in his approach, and his delivery of his messages. But at the end of the day, he's speaking real facts. From what I've heard, it's just straightening. In the words of the Migos, your expectations are at a certain place, and he gonna straighten your expectations out. You know what I mean? You got to be realistic with your point in life, your perspective in life, and where you're at, where you're going, and what you should expect for who you are. For Kevin Samuels, me and my girl actually had a back and forth on vacation because of Kevin Samuels. He speaks a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't want to hear, but a lot of people don't want to hear anything that's against what they believe, and that's not a way to live. You know what I mean? Like, just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not true. Just because you don't subscribe to that thought pattern, to that thought process, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So for Kevin Samuels, what I got to say is if you tune into him, if you watch him, if you subscribe to what he says, think open-mindedly. Everything he says is in Bible, but everything he says isn't bullshit. So you have to be able to have an internal filter, as with anything else you consume in life, from Charlamagne to Kevin Samuels to Joe Budden to Kwame Brown to ESPN to TMZ to Instagram, to anything in life. You need to have an internal filter that says, I can hear everything that's coming to me, but to me, this is what I choose to keep, and this is what just goes through. In one ear, out the other, what actually sticks in your brain. So Kevin Samuel says a lot of stuff that will help a lot of people. Unfortunately, his message and his messaging is really tailored at a certain demographic of men and of women. The men that he really tailors towards are lower age, lower income, lower socioeconomic status men. And then the women that he tailors his message towards are higher age, higher income, and higher socioeconomic status. So he kind of creates an environment that encourages a battle, because you have 30 to 40-year-old women that have multiple degrees and are making good money and have a good idea of life. And then you have 20 to 25, I'd imagine is his main target age. I don't read comments. I don't really go back and forth. But most of the men, I don't imagine a 30, 40, 50-year-old man just listening to Kevin Samuels like, yeah, that's the truth right there, brother. I imagine it's more so younger men that haven't been afforded the same opportunities in life with women that are now basing their projections on women because of their lack of experience. So I think about it. I got to a discussion in my group me the other day. Certain people, because of their looks, because of their height, because of their socioeconomic status, they don't have the same access to the volume and quality of women as others. So someone, not to toot my own horn or not to big my head up, but someone like me may have a certain access to a certain volume and quality of women to where I can ignore Kevin Samuels because ain't no woman ever gonna try me like that.
Well, you can ignore Kevin Samuels because a lot of what from and I don't consume him regularly. I consume clips, or if somebody sends me something, I will watch it. But you are living a lot of the stuff that he's talking, so you don't need to hear him say it. You know that, like, all right, let's just say
no.
But here's what I'm saying. Both of us are in relationships. Both of us are doing well. Imagine you and I are single, and we decide to go out one night in Atlanta, right?
Brother, I'm single. I'm in a relationship, and I'm single at the same time because I ain't married. On my taxes, I put single. So me and my girl have that discussion constantly that I'm a young single male. I'm not a married individual. So,
all right. Well,
tricky situation for me. But you're right. I live a lot of that. You know.
Right. So for the sake of the story, you and I decide to go out.
Yeah.
There is a certain type of woman that we can speak to because of our professions and where we are that other guys our age can't. And it's like we can turn that let's talk about for dating purposes, right? If you can find an 8 who has a terrible personality, but she's an 8, but bro, she's bad. So she's boring. Like, who cares if she's bad? But then you have people who don't necessarily speak to women from a place of power. And I say a place of power in the sense that you have options. You have high quality options. It's like, yeah, bro, like, yeah, whatever she got going on, that's cool. But shorty over here is cooler. And also, when it comes to whatever she got going on professionally, like, I think that's dope, but I don't need her to pay my bills. So, like, I need you to complete me. So if you don't complete me, you don't matter to me right now. You know what I mean?
I don't need nobody to complete me. I'm complete.
I said that wrong. If you don't compliment me, if you're not somebody who I want to vibe with, right? If you don't compliment me, I don't need you. Like, I don't care how good you look. I don't care how good your job is. It's because I've put myself in a position to where I can't pull every girl I meet. No, but I can fairly go out, and if I have a conversation with a woman, we can have a positive conversation because of, you know, the where I'm at in life today. Whereas we have friends who can't do the same thing because of whatever their reason is. And again, not to shit on them. We just live different lives, you know? And it's just part of it. And so where I don't have to listen to Kevin Samuels to tell me that if a woman can be a 6-figure woman and she's 35, but she got 3 kids from 3 different baby daddies. It's like, well, I got my business together. I take care of my kids. So I don't want to deal with your kids. Like, I don't have to deal with your kids if I don't want to, because I put myself in a place to where I don't have to deal with your kids. And that may be insensitive, but they make my kids. So if I don't want to deal with them, I don't have to.
Right. That's crazy. Me and my dad recently had a conversation because, as I said, my little brother has been tuning in to Kevin Samuels. And we were just talking about the whole aspect and everything about it. And I told him that I've never dated a woman with children, and that I would never, ever consider a woman with children. I don't have children. I'm 27 years old. I've intentionally and blessingly, thank you, Lord, I don't have no children. But why would I want to take on additional responsibility? I've intentionally avoided responsibilities up until this point in my life. And my dad was saying that, well, you have that option. You have that choice. If I had a kid, I could still have that same requirement, but how justified is that requirement, seeing that I got kids of myself? I got kids on my own, and I think that it's like you said, it's from a place of power. It's from a place of options. It's from a place of understanding in general how Black privilege. If you put yourself in a certain situation, if you've been blessed enough to be in a certain status in a certain place in life, you have a lot more control over your destiny than other people. And that's essentially all Kevin Samuels preaches. He preaches that based on your choices in life, based on your status in life, your age, your height, your weight, your income, your mental stability, your value to society, you have certain options afforded to you based on these criteria. And honestly, to be honest, I know some women that they hear that they find no issue with it, just simply because they fit a lot of that criteria. I also know some women, and have talked to some women that find heavy issue in that, because some of that criteria knocks them off of the pedestal that they've put themselves on. I got a pro fight. Oye is not gonna appreciate this shout out, but there is a famous speech within my chapter, the "Put the Pussy on a Pedestal" speech. And I hate to be so vulgar on your podcast. And
Bro, I don't care.
My own name. I'm saying words like that, proverbs right under my name. But once you put the pussy on a pedestal, you've lost all of your power. You know what I mean? But you gotta watch out for that, because as you say, as statistics say, as Kevin Samuels say, as life says, you got a lot more options than you think you got. So if you go out your way to put one up real high and go way out your way to make stuff work with one, and to really tailor your life to meet one that you've put on the pedestal, right? It's all this. You know what I mean? It's all of that there that and that's something that I was taught as an 18-year-old. I was lucky enough to pledge my fraternity my freshman year. I was a baby coming into it, and I was around these 23 to 26-year-old men that taught me the ropes, taught me the game, and because of that, now as a 27-year-old man, I'm in a position that a lot of 35-year-old men are just now approaching and reaching, and game go how it go, you know what I mean? And outside of what God has blessed me with for economics, for physical attributes, for anything that goes in it, it's all a mentality. It's all a mindset. And I think that if you take your mind away from what Kevin Samuels says about mentality or about physical, and focus on what he says about mentality, about expectations, about realism, about just kind of being grounded in reality and your true options, then you won't find as much of an issue. But if you get caught up in the physical aspect of it, if you get caught up in the superficial, as a man or a woman, because as a man, a lot, as I alluded to earlier, it's a lot of men that don't have the income or physical attributes to demand what Kevin Samuel preaches for women. You need to accept average, and then you'll get lost in the sauce. The same way a lot of women that don't have the physical or socioeconomic kind of status that expect something from men, you're gonna get lost in the sauce. So realistically, it's all about expectations.
And that's what it is. Know who you are and know where you fall in this game called life. And you won't be and you won't have your feelings hurt. And you talk about putting it on a pedestal, and options and all of this stuff right here. I look at it like this, bro. If you are a woman and I commit to you, understand that I look at you as a great option, a great choice, a choice that I want to make because you're not my only choice. There are other choices that are there, but of my options, I felt like this is the best option. This is where I want to be. I chose to be here with you for a reason, and sometimes that can get missed. And yeah, I really like the way you really did that Kevin Samuels thing because this conversation didn't go toxic.
I know how to avoid toxic. As I said, they've been trying to cancel me since high school. My girl told me, please don't get canceled tonight. So I know how to avoid those traps that they set for us, you know?
Yeah, my class reunion's next weekend, and I'm curious to how that's going to go because I was hell in high school, and I've calmed down a lot, obviously. But I'm definitely gonna come in there shining. Like I'm gonna have I'm gonna have 3 chains on. I think I'm gonna pull out the diamond hoops on them. Like I'm really gonna come in there like I'm gonna look like I ain't supposed to be there just to make a point. And I don't even know if I should go back and flex on them like that.
Do it. I'm like Kermit. You know that Kermit meme when he come out with the hood? Just do it.
Cause part of it is it's like, yeah, bro, like, yeah, that's him. You see it,
man.
But shit, man, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Nothing else. You trying to get me canceled out here? If you want to talk about anything else, let's talk about Derrick Jackson, that cornball. Since we on the tip, we do positive and negative.
Who was Derrick Jackson?
So Derrick Jackson is the opposite of Kevin Samuels.
Is he the light skinned dude with the tattoo?
No, this is a dark skinned, swole.
Oh,
I hate to do this to you, Bam Bam, but this is a Bam Bam ass nigga. Like he is, he's nice and swole.
Oh yeah. No, he the one who was talking about how to treat a woman and he cheated on his wife. Yeah, and then they got this book called Heal Together Without Hurting Each Other.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about Derrick Jackson. Let's talk about how a lot of y'all would follow, subscribe to, share Derrick Jackson, and then diss Kevin Samuels. You know what I mean? I'm in cancel culture mode right now. Let's go ahead and get it. This is when the podcast get good, right when it's about to end. So this is Derrick Jackson. He's pretty much preaching the opposite message of Kevin Samuels and being completely accepted. Kevin Samuels is preaching realism. You know what I mean? And he's getting canceled left and right. Everybody trying to take him down. But Derrick Jackson is doing exactly what Kevin Samuels said, and he got caught. He got lost in the sauce, man. But then also, to a certain extent, this is cancel culture mode right now. Y'all seen a picture of his wife? You know what I mean? His wife is Bonnet Gang. His wife is not the most physically attractive woman. So why would you expect that this brother's bringing in hundreds of $1,000s a month and don't want no attractive woman? Game go how it go.
Well, look, bro. You bringing up Derrick Jackson brings me to Justin LeBoy, and it's this other dude who I don't know his name. He's a light skinned neck tattoo having dude who talk about some. If you think you're gonna take a girl on a date and you think she's gonna give you some after, you crazy, bro. Like you need to like give her $500, $700, and no, I don't ever need to give her that money. If she wants $500, she can take her $500 to work. But it's these guys who are pandering to women, and they're pandering to women to get pussy, and they're creating these platforms just pandering to women. And again, I'm all about identifying with women and having an honest conversation with women, right? Yeah. Like we can talk about it for real. And I can tell you where I've been a sucker, I've been a simp, because we all have done some simping. Like it's part of being a man. I can tell you where I've been a dog, I've been a man whore. I can tell you the full range of who I've been as a man.
I don't know nothing about that.
I mean, this was years ago, long time ago. But I can speak honestly to the different type of man that I've been in different situations. But what I can't do is I can't sit out here and play to women just so they can say, "Oh my God, he gets us. Oh, he understands what we're going through. He's bigging us up, bro. It's bad enough we got to fight Meg the Stallion and what's the name?
Cardi B.
Cardi B and Sweetie. We got to fight against all this bullshit they putting in y'all heads because look, y'all ain't Meg the Stallion. And Meg don't even look good. Like she look like Mr. Ed.
Woo. Hey, bro. Hey, I hate to break your monologue, but you're the first person I know that's agreed with me on that. Meg the Stallion is very average. I know a whole bunch of women look like Meg the Stallion.
Yeah, bro. Like I would beat, but I'll beat, but like if I see her out, like I'm not about to go holler at her.
You're trying to get me canceled. I can see what's going on this Big Baby podcast.
Man, look, I'm just talking. I was like, with Meg, like if the opportunity present itself, minus her fame, I would not say no. But like if I seen her in the club, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, bro, I gotta get Shawty right there. You know what I mean? Like, no, bro, like, yeah, she thick, she cool.
She look like she can run a mean pick and roll. I'm gonna keep it real with you.
Oh yeah, she played power forward in high school, most definitely. She was a foe. But then like with Cardi B, like
this podcast, I'm gonna tell everybody turn this podcast off after 1:15, because after 1:15, this shit get out of control.
It's gonna be the YouTube clips. But then you got Cardi B, right? Cardi and shit, I can throw Beyonce in that motherfucker too. They talk all that shit, but they came back home. So if you wanna quote some of the stuff that they saying, just make sure you come back home after you get done quoting. Come on back home, cause that's what they did. And Sweetie, what happened to that Bentley? Huh? Yeah.
Honcho said a little bit of straightening.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, he just did a little bit of straightening. You think you're gonna keep the Bentley and leave? Nah. We're gonna run that back. We're gonna take it back to the dealership.
I'm gonna tell you something, man. How it go in this game, and I have a saying. It goes from I don't know the name of the song, but it's by Half a Mill. That's Hit Boy and Dom Kennedy's group.
Okay.
They got a song, game go how it go, you can't change that. That's part of the chorus. But game go how it go. You know what I mean? And if you don't know the game, you get messed up because you don't expect game to go how it go. But if you know the game, you are fully prepared for game to go exactly how it go. How it's always gone, how it's always gonna go. And Future actually spit a line, Future Hendrix, Future Vandross, Future Luther King Jr. He spit a line way back in the gap, maybe high school or college, where he said, "A bee gonna be a bee, a hoe gonna be a hoe. That's something you gotta know. It ain't no way around it."
Nah, man, Future been preaching forever, and everybody want to get mad at Future when he talk crazy. Like, somebody sent me a little clip today when on the interview, and it's like, Future, you got 6 baby mamas. How come you won't get with one of them? He was like,
"Why did he get with one of them?"
He said, "Because the other ones will get mad."
Hey, man, this is what I'm going to tell you is that during the most toxic times of my life, Future has been on repeat in my ears. And during the most holistic and productive times of my life, Nipsey Hussle has been on repeat in my ears. I'm currently listening to a playlist that is all Future and Nipsey Hussle. So I'm balancing the good with the bad. It's summertime. And you know what I mean? Like, yeah, how it go, you know?
Bro, it's summertime, and I got abs for the first time in like 4 years, dog.
You said what?
I got abs again for the first time in 4 years.
Like you said, you got ass for the first time in 4 years. I said, nigga, what have you been on?
Nah, hell no.
You saw my disgruntledness? Like, what? What did you just say?
Do you think I could get on here and smile if I ain't had ass in 4 years?
Man, hey, you'd be surprised. I tell you, a bunch of these people in life, they really don't be engaging in a lot of interactions with the opposite sex. I realized that and they have a lot of excuses for it, whether it be religion, whether it be focusing on my money, whether it be focusing on my career, whether it be, they have a whole list of reasons why they ain't really interacting with females. at the end of the day,
women, you can't call them females.
Hey, this is a toxic hour. After 1:30, you get toxic hour. Let me tell you something. That shorty said, and I ain't even gonna call it that shorty, because maybe shorty is offensive as female is. Kyle said that female is unacceptable because it's just weird. Nigger is not unacceptable because it's just weird. It's unacceptable because it's offensive. She tried to equate female to nigger. That is black privilege. That is liberal privilege. That is the bougie privilege. That is, I don't have no struggle, let me find a struggle privilege. That's the root cause of this whole interview. I finally broke the ice, an hour 30. I've been sipping good. The game been going how it's going. But that's what this is all about, man. I have been very triggered by that whole interview you put out and a whole bunch of clips. I watched every clip. I liked most of the clips. So most of your likes on your YouTube came from me. Because I said, there ain't no way. And as I'm sitting here listening to this interview, I'm like, is she serious? She said, I'm in a PhD program. I went to North Carolina, UNC, and then University of Michigan, and I experienced racism. What the fuck you expect? You went to UNC, North Carolina. You went to Michigan. Do you think they was just gonna be nigga happy? You thought they were just gonna be inclusive? Like, what did you expect? I'm sorry.
No, because that's real shit. And like, you were saying the things that like I was thinking like during the interview, and like, and part of me was like, bro, I should just say something. Nah, I'm just gonna let her keep going because like at the end of the day, like one of my things that I like to do is I love for the interviewee to tell their own story and allow the viewers to take it in as they want to, because bro, it's just some of these niggas, they ain't lived before. And it's like, look, bro. When I go to Cartersville and I get racially profiled, it doesn't bother me because I'm in
Cartersville. How it go?
That's Cartersville. When I went to that Republican Party meeting in Cartersville.
You a wild man for that, by the way. you wild.
Nah, bro, I tell you the funny part was they thought I was a bootlicker too. They're like, oh, Republican, huh? I go, no. I'm just here because y'all got Raffensperger here, and I know y'all about to rip him a new one.
Okay. While we're on this topic, at an hour and 37 in, so all of my civilized people tuned out about hour 15 as I warned them. What you think about Joe Biden? I'm not going to get over here and incriminate myself on a whole bunch of stuff.
I can't speak on it publicly.
I can speak on this shit publicly because I'm a black man and I live in a black, realistic world. Joe Biden promised black people, and specifically the black voters that came out for him for student loan forgiveness, police brutality type shit, and black power type shit. He promised them, whether it be direct and intentional promises or whether it be subliminal or implied promises. But he kind of promised them a lot of shit that he ain't delivered nothing on.
And none of it's going to get delivered. And I'll tell you that I knew that he was the only candidate from the party that could win because he's not super liberal. He's middle of the road as far as the left side of the house goes. And the people on the right who were tired of 45 could vote for him as their president. They couldn't, but they would not feel comfortable voting for anybody else who was actually progressive. So that's all I'll say. I'm not shocked by anything that's happened. I had no expectations. I just what happened has happened.
So I've been in GroupMe calling my frat brothers coons for the past 4 months. It's May now, so 5 months. Just simply because they were the biggest kind of proponents for pushing Joe Biden and voter turnout and the Democratic Party and their agenda and doing all these things. I'm not a political person at all. To be honest, I wanted Kanye to be president, to keep it 1,000, just because I've been a Kanye fan since I was like 12, 13 years old. But beyond that, I don't care about politics because I know the president is just a position. I know that in any company, the CEO has to answer to the board of directors. So they don't really hold as much power as they speak that they hold. But they really went hard for Joe Biden in getting people to vote for him, and then went radio silent and holding him accountable for the things that people voted for him for. And I've been very upset with that. So I anybody that watches these clips, I really just want you to do an internal analysis of yourself and say the energy that I had up until November and the energy that I've had from November till May, look at those energies. If your energy on one end was this high and then it came down to here, or vice versa, ask yourself why and what, and if you are a pawn in this whole scheme. I'm with Dr. Umar again. A no vote is what the Black people should do. The Black people should get a united agenda for what they need delivered to them. And if nobody on either side is going to deliver those items to them, then they shouldn't vote. They should let the white people clash that out. But the Black people put Joe Biden in office, to keep it 1,000. So without Black people, Trump would be back in office, and we would have still been getting stimulus checks and all type of bullshit would have been going on. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not a Trump supporter. But Joe Biden's in office, and he pretty much said, fuck y'all on student loan forgiveness. He passed all type of different bills for different communities, but hasn't done anything for not anything.
No, the Emmett Till lynching bill is still sitting in Congress.
It's been sitting there for like 12 years. So
yeah, bro. So here's what I'll say. Here's what I can say. Black people love to vote, but they don't love to demand anything from politicians. They will take the promises, but they won't follow up on those promises. And this was just another example of that. And again, I didn't have an expectation, so I'm not bothered by what happened. But for those, just overall, the issue with Black people in American politics is that we get duped by a party, a specific party that I guess I belong to that party, but whatever, get duped by the party. I don't know. I think I'm a registered Democrat, bro. I registered when I was 18, so
I ain't registered for nothing. I'm independent. Kanye for president 2024, 2020, all that shit.
Yeah, I registered in like 2009, so I don't even remember, to be if we're gonna be perfectly honest here. But when I vote a split ticket bill, or fucking whatever that shit's called. But here's the thing,
because I done voted Democrat on everything, and I feel like a whole bozo because I done voted Democrat for everything. The Democrat ain't did they ain't did nothing for me that I know of. AOC complains all day.
Oh my God, AOC. Bro, AOC kills me. Like
since we in cancel culture hour, can we talk about feminism or womanism?
Well, no, yeah, we can talk about feminism because you can't call them females, but they call themselves feminists. Now, how the fuck am I supposed to take you and your movement seriously if you don't want me to call you what you call yourself? I'm a feminist. All right, well, you a female too? No, I'm not a female. I'm a woman. Bitch, what?
This is cancel culture hour, so anything that was said between 1 hour and 15 minutes in this interview and this moment is just pure cancel culture hour. Don't hold me to it. It's not me. It's spirits talking through me. But yeah, let's talk about how feminists and I'm not gonna get in. I'm gonna stay far away from this because I don't want to be canceled. And my girl told me don't get canceled tonight.
Well, I don't mind getting canceled because Amanda Seals got me up out of here once. Bring the topic and
who is Amanda Seals?
Huh?
Who is this woman? Is she the leader of all Black women? Is she the leader of Black people, or is she just one entertainer, a cog in the wheel?
She's a cog in the wheel. She's part of the industry incest, as I call it, because she's always talking
incest.
Yeah, no, for real, because she quick to call out somebody, but she ain't said nothing about her brother Charlamagne, the guy who put a Spanish fly in a woman's drink and talked about and he like talked about the podcast where she didn't remember having sex with him, and it wasn't rape because he did it because they intended on having sex that night, but she didn't remember having sex and asked did his friends come in there, and he said no, not. He said this on a podcast. He said
brother,
this to Andrew Schultz.
Brother, I don't want to be nowhere around all these allegations. As Kwame Brown said, what was the charge that was lowered until? I'm not going to put that on Charlamagne just simply because I don't want them folks coming after me. I got my own issues with the legal system that I don't want nothing else tainting my name. But that's also why I've been doing these daily videos, just because I want to make sure that them folks know that I'm a good brother in they system that's providing positive insights and wisdom. For anybody that's subscribing to those type of programs, treat women with respect. Treat law enforcement with respect. Treat white people with respect, because that's what I do. That's what I've always done my whole life. This is my disclaimer during Cancel Culture Hour. Before y'all cancel me, I love women. I love Black women. I don't love law enforcement, but I respect. I respect law enforcement. I acknowledge law enforcement. Let me just tell y'all right now that Joshua Fowler, Product of Proverbs, is not a anti-feminist or anti-Semitic or anti-law enforcement organization. I'm gonna get my disclaimers out around a minute 46, just in case anybody else is still tuned into this live stream. I'm gonna make sure that y'all all know that I respect and acknowledge the struggles of all people, light-skinned, dark-skinned, woman, male, educated, uneducated. You all have the right to feel however you feel. Many people may not agree with it, but we respect you. We acknowledge you, and we're here for you to help you heal through your pain. Regardless of how minuscule your pain is on the grand scheme of the pain scale, you know, if your pain from going to UNC and experiencing slight racist remarks from one professor in your 72 credit hour program, or if your minuscule pain from going to University of Michigan, one of the leading medical schools in the country. Michigan has a great medical center. I know I used to work in healthcare IT, and a lot of our projects were there in the state of Michigan. But between all those schools, they produce a lot of good doctors. But if for any reason you experience any racism in the heart of America, where it's generally middle America and not that many Black people that's in those type of situations, but if they don't relate to your struggle because they're not from the same place you are, your struggle is still real. We do acknowledge that. We do accept that. If you hear any sarcasm in my voice, you're hearing that. That's not what I'm hoping to portray. But I just want to say that everybody is respected. Everybody is accepted. The LGBTQ, the motherfucking Black Lives Matter, the light skin lives matter, the dark skin lives matter, the African lives matter, the immigrant lives matter. That everybody, I fuck with y'all. So please don't cancel me. Thank you. That's my disclaimer for this whole interview. Thank you, AC, for letting me get that off, brother.
Man, no problem, because you know, Black people live next to water. If you're not next to water, there's not gonna be Black people there. Outside of maybe Texas, but there's still like water kind of there too. On one side, but we live in Texas. But if you think about it, Black people live on the eastern seaboard. In California, in Texas, in Chicago.
The Great Lakes, you know?
The Great Lakes, yeah, but like, other than that, look, bro, I drove through New Mexico on my way back to Georgia. Bro, from Phoenix to Amarillo, Texas, which was my trip for the day, I was like, bro, I could get killed out here and nobody would know. Like when you're driving that shit, bro, you look from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway. On one side, you see Trump's wall that didn't get built. On the other side,
don't do that with me on the other half of this screen.
Nah, for real. I'm telling you what I observed. I'm telling you what I observed. And then you look to the other side and you see like nothing. It's just nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you get out to go get gas, and then you go get your little bite to eat, and they look at you like, what are you doing here? Like, you're black. Why are you here? But I appreciate your disclaimer because we don't want anybody to think that we hate them. We can be critical of you. We can be critical of your situation, but we don't hate you. We're just pointing out our objectives. And you know, when you threw in the LGBTQ, WPRS, WYB,
No, don't do that.
I'm
Don't do
joking,
that with me on the other half of the screen.
When you
No,
talk about
sir.
when you talk about the LGBTQ community, and then you said we're not being anti-Semites here because we're not. We're not against anybody, but I make jokes about everybody.
I don't make
How
jokes
come
about nobody.
Josh doesn't do?
Big Baby the goat make jokes about everybody.
Yeah.
Project Proverbs and Josh Fowler don't joke about nobody.
Nothing.
Disclaimer.
But you know, you see all of this stuff, and you kind of alluded to it earlier. It's okay to pick on black people. It's okay to treat black people like shit. But you can't talk about nobody else poorly. None of these other communities. Boy, if you say something that's halfway that's close to being anti-Semitism, you're done. Like you know, they talk about Trump not being on platforms. What's my man's name? Farrakhan. He ain't been on platforms for years. If
Brother,
you have the wrong,
said all the keywords. You said Semitism, Trump, and Farrakhan. Therefore, I cannot be on this screen with you, brother, because you are putting targets on all of our backs in this live stream. My name is. Let me tell y'all something. My name is Joshua Growler. That's where I'm coming from. Joshua Growler, a product of Proverbs.
I'm not giving my thoughts on it at all because like I don't have strong opinions on most of these things because I'm not like well versed on them. So I don't speak about things that I don't study. But like I've seen people get canceled for their comments on what's going on in Israel and Palestine. Let me tell you, I have no comments. I
don't know what's happening over there. I have a comment. I don't know what's happening, but I do know the facts say that most of those missiles that Israel is shooting are funded by the United States government and our taxpayer dollars. So therefore, my taxes that they take out of my check every week are going to a bunch of different things, but we can assume that some of those pennies are going towards bombing on behalf of Israel. That's an objective fact that I learned in the news. I still don't know anything about their conflict. I don't pick any side on that conflict. But I do know that if you want to pick a side, acknowledge what your country is doing in that conflict. Anti-Semitism, I have a strong opinion on that, but I'll never say it out loud while I'm being recorded. Most of the people around me hear my thoughts about that. Shout out to my girl. She knows exactly what would come next if I wasn't in the grasp of cancel culture. Shout out to my family. They know exactly what will come next. Let's say the LGBTQ. I'm all about people and freedom. This is a free country. You have the freedom to do whatever you like, whatever you want. You shouldn't be penalized or punished for doing certain things. But also, what I want y'all to do is, if someone was to come against the LG, and I'm gonna lean up for this one because it's a serious point. If someone was to come against the LGBTQ community or LGBTQ culture, you guys would get them out the paint. But if someone is to call a black man gay or use slurs that you guys would take offense to, you guys are dead silent on defending that black man from those slurs. But if they pointed those slurs towards a actual member of your community, you would want to get them out the paint. But if they point those slurs to someone not in your community, you're dead silent, and that's dead wrong. So that's an objective fact. Just thinking in the terms of Kevin Samuels' recent Kwame Brown post, a recent where they want to discredit people by pointing out things and calling them homosexual or calling them certain things. I mean, the LGBTQ community is nowhere to be found. Call Kevin Samuels a fag, and call Kevin Samuels gay, and LGBT community is dead silent, but call someone in that community any of those two words, and you're ready to get canceled. So you can't pick and choose when you want to fight your battles. If it's your battle to fight, it's your battle to fight. So I think that you guys should be a lot more vigilant in defending racial and sexual slurs against certain people. Kwame Brown recently has been under an attack where certain people are calling him homosexual, calling him fag, calling him gay, calling him all these things. And no one from that community has come to his defense. No one from that community has attacked the people that said that. But let anyone say those words against someone in that community, and the entire community would have an issue. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, This is Cancel Culture Hour from 1:15 to 1:55. This your boy Joshua Growler. All the facts, all the everything I got to say, opinions and stuff. Joshua Growler, HOSHUAGROWLER. Look me up. That's your boy. Pack the UAC. I mean, Big Baby to go. I'm sorry, I put all that out there. They come up to your ass. Wait.
But nah, man, I agree with what you're saying because, bro, don't nobody care about us, and we pick and choose our battles. Okay, that's fine. You pick and choose your battles, but again, be honest about it. Just be honest about what it is that you stand for, man. And if that's what you're gonna do, stand on it, and it's okay. And for you, and I'm happy what you said about the Israel Palestine thing, because all these people got these super woke posts, and I'm like, hey, bro, sometimes you should just mind your business. You should just stay out of folks' business, and if you read the Bible a little bit, you understand that
read the Bible.
Well,
people read the Bible. What kind of
absurd
thought is that? Reading the holy text of God? No way. No way.
You read the Bible.
We don't gotta read no Bible.
I ain't gonna speak on Mike Todd because
this brother want to be Kanye so bad. I'm gonna speak on him. This nigga putting out music videos.
No, he's not.
Like a failed rapper, 40-year-old rapper trying to be 20, and y'all gonna listen and eat this shit up, but y'all won't actually listen to your elders or listen to the text or the word that's in place for you. I read my Bible every day. Bible studies. I read the verse of the day. I read my own scriptures. I'm in Deuteronomy now, so I've been reading from Genesis, getting throughout the end of the Bible for the past 2 years. It get boring a little bit. I ain't even gonna cap with y'all. I do my own physical research. Meanwhile, y'all listen to a nigga on IG with a following like that's your spiritual guidance. Stop that shit, man. Listen to your grandparents. Listen to your aunts and uncles. Listen to the people. Actually, a lot of your grandparents and aunts and uncles might not be as well versed, and they may be a lot more emotional in spirit than they are literal in spirit. Read the Bible for yourself. Interpret the word of God for yourself. Go
to church. Go to church and ask your pastor questions.
Please. And thank you.
I consumed Mike Todd for a little while. The woman liked him. And here's what I do, bro. I'll listen to anybody's sermon, I'll take notes, and then I'll criticize the sermon when we're done. Like, because if we're gonna do virtual church, right? We're gonna sit there and watch it. Then we're gonna talk about, okay, so what did you pull out of this message? Here's what I got from the message. But then I'm looking at him up there with them chains on. I go, I ain't mad at you for being able to afford chains, because do pastors deserve to make money? Absolutely. If you are a full-time pastor, you deserve to make money. And if your church is bringing in a certain amount of money, do you deserve to make more money? Sure. Like, I'm not saying a pastor can't afford a chain. But dog, I don't really want to see you up here in the chain looking like a rapper when you're preaching to me. Like, and maybe that's just me being traditional and old school, but like, bro, that's just not what I want to see from my preacher. Because I remember a church I went to, I really liked the preacher, bro. Really did. But he did one thing that really set me off, man. And he talked about how he drove a Chrysler 300 because he really wanted a Bentley. And again, bro, you can want a Bentley. I'm not mad at you for wanting a Bentley at all. But man, optics. You up here talking about you want a Bentley and you preaching in a Gucci belt. And I just don't understand how you have these rich preachers asking poor people for their money and then not. I don't know, bro. This is gonna take me down a dark hole that I find myself going down far too often because I just have so many issues with the structure of not the structure, but with just these money hungry preachers, man. It really bothers me that you're preaching certain things. You're asking for hope. You're preaching hope, but then you're taxing your worshipers more than the government, but you're not giving them. It's niggas out here who gonna pay their 10% before they pay their rent. You know what I mean? And
I wanted them niggas, by the way, because
I'm not mad at you, but you're also in a place that if you pay your 10%, you're not worried about your rent.
Yeah.
So, but there are people in those situations who will pay the church, pay the preacher before they take care of their necessities.
But for that,
okay,
you got to change your mindset, because those people aren't paying the church or the preacher; they're paying God, because it's not the preacher that said pay 10% tithe. It's not the church that said pay 10% tithe. It's God that said pay 10% tithe. So to them, and I don't know, in their mind, maybe they aren't, but at least maybe in my mind and my understanding of the word, that's God. I'm paying that money directly to God and his ministry, to his church. Even when I wasn't going to Damascus, I paid my 10 to Damascus. As I go to Damascus, I pay my 10 to Damascus, but I'm not paying those to Damascus. I'm paying that to God. I'm not paying that to my dad. I'm paying that to God. You know what I mean? Like, I'll never cash out my dad my 10%. I'm hoping that it's going to go to God's ministry. God's ministry is, and maybe that's because I have an inner working, an inner looking at church finances, but to keep that building, to keep the lights on, to fund programs, the missionary, the youth ministry, to fund the different food drives that go on, to fund the food pantry, to fund the homeless outreach, to fund all these things, people's 10% go into that.
The worst thing I ever put my eyes on was a church budget.
Woo. Well, brother, I hate to do this, but a lot of church budgets are created and maintained by people that don't have accounting degrees.
So besides that, man, I'll just tell you that I saw too much money going to support paid positions in the church. And I mean, this is my podcast. I can say what I want. I'm like, yeah, I'm a member here, but you're not getting on. I'm like, you're not getting my money, because I see where it's going. And when I look at your outreach ministry, and I go, our outreach ministry that's budgeted for a year is a good night out in the city. I say, nah, bro. Like, it really put me in a place to where what you're saying is what I like to believe, right? Because again, what you're saying is your experience and what you've seen, right? Because you are privy to information about the church that you're a member of more so than other people are to the churches that they belong to. And when I got a hold to this budget, I say, wow, thanks for this information. Wow, I mean, y'all make this, this is public knowledge and niggas ain't mad right now? Like, y'all see this? Y'all see where this shit going? And you look at some of these salaries and you go, this is a low end full-time job, but you still work your full-time job. And again, not to say that people shouldn't get paid for doing things in the church. But then when it's like the things that the church should be doing outside of the four walls, and you have all these excess funds to support what happens inside the four walls, but it's not necessary, and it's not reflecting in what the church should be doing, because, you know, the church So many churches are so insular and they care about what happens inside their four walls, but it's like, hey, bro, you're preaching to the choir every Sunday. You need to be out here getting to the people who are outside of the church, and you're not directing your focus there. I can't support that.
I feel you also because understanding scripture, understanding God, understanding heaven and worship. A lot of people, and it's arguable. I mean, it depends on your interpretation of the scripture and interpretation of a lot of things. But a lot of people shouldn't be paid for what they do for God, because your reward is a heavenly reward. A reward, you know what I mean? Your reward. Uh, it, I've never been. I've played the drums at the church since I was maybe 7 years old. Never been paid for playing the drums. I don't want to ever be paid for playing the drums because that's a talent or a gift that God gave me. I took drum lessons 1 month, but outside of that, I just worked with my mom and the musicians to learn how to play the drums. And no, the church shouldn't take money from other functions to pay me for something that I don't need that money. You know what I mean? I've been the director of digital media. That's a title that I was afforded as I made Facebook and Instagram and helped with Facebook Live and did all these things with the church since 2014. It's now 2021. That's 7 years. You know what I mean?
Dang, bro, you doing that in college?
Yeah, in college. I was a marketing major, and I said, hey, I know how to do this. Let me do this for the church. I didn't say, hey, church, I'm going to do this. Pay me for doing this. I just said, I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? So maybe I have it, like you said, I have a different perspective because of my different understanding of God, the scripture, and everything that's going on. But I wouldn't, it's not necessary to be paid. But back to Kevin Samuels' expectations. When you start paying somebody for something, they expect to be paid for something. When you start paying the organist 2 bands a month to play music in the church, and they're now playing music and going to choir practice and coming on Sunday for a check and not for God, you've set an expectation for them. They're incentivized in a different way. Even at the pastor level, I understand that some pastors are grossly overpaid. And because I've been privileged enough to grow up underneath the pastor and literally see my dad for 3-4 nights a week, whether it's executing Bible studies and certain ministry meetings, or whether it's planning sermons or planning revivals or planning certain things, been able to see him work. Some people are underpaid, some people are overpaid. You know what I mean? But regardless of earthly pay, regardless of financial gain here for stuff that's gonna not be here when you're gone, you're doing it for God's recognition. This is a good point to plug this book I recently read, The Final Quest by Rick Joyner. It's a story of someone in the last days fighting good versus evil, and he gets to see some of the realms of heaven that Paul saw, some of the afterlife, and gets to see wisdom and how to fight the struggle against evil, good and evil in the last days when Jesus finally unleashes his army of angels among people. I mean, that'll really put it in perspective for you, because what you do for self gain, for your self promotion, that means nothing in heaven. In the afterlife, you'll be in the lowest level of heaven if you were doing for self. But what you do for others, what you do for God, what you do for love, what you do to spread his ministry, what you do for worship, that's what gets you your crowns. That's what gets you in the throne closest to him. That's what gets you in the upper levels of heaven. And that's explained in the Bible, but also in this fictional book, it kind of puts it in a different perspective or a different light for people. But in general, when it comes to church and church finances and church money, just make sure your why. Similar to Charlamagne, are you doing it for yourself, your self-promotion, your self-glory, regardless of what it costs? In the church example, you're costing the church money they could be using to bring people to Christ for your own self-promotion. In the example of Charlamagne, you're taking money from independent Black businesses they could be using to advance their business, but now you're giving some of that to the white owner of your business. What's your why? What's the end result or end goal of what you're doing and why you're doing it? And that'll be your driving force or your driving factor for your decisions. And if you don't got the right why, you won't have the right results. You know what I mean?
Bro, that was beautiful, and there's nothing else that I could say to top that. We're at over 2 hours. I think that's a great place to close it, and I really appreciate that because I grew up in the church, and I appreciate having conversations with you because you know the business of it and you know the politics of it, but you are able to watch somebody, one of my favorite preachers, and watch how he carries himself at home, out and about, and in front of his congregation. And you speak so highly of your dad, and he happens to be a pastor, but you don't speak highly of him because he's a pastor, because he walks it. And hopefully all this COVID stuff get lifted so me, you, Silk, and Jahidi can link back up at Christmas service on at Mount Isla, so I can come in there smelling like the backside of a bar. But
God working with you. That's all it is.
He's working with me. And for anybody who ever has a criticism of somebody coming into church smelling like last night, I'll always say, hey, two things can be true, but at least they're here. You can be filthy and funky, but still want to get a good word. And if I understand my Lord and Savior to be who he presented himself in his book, he has no problem with people coming to receive him from different walks of life.
Come as you are.
Yeah, he don't. Let me stop. Hey, Josh, this was great, bro. I really appreciate it. I really appreciated it, man. We got toxic for a little while.
Don't cancel me, please. Again, Hoshua Growler, if you want to look me up and cancel me. Hoshua Growler, HOSHUAGROWLER. Look me up. Find it out.
But we were able to end it like on a more serious note and talk about some things, man. I love you, dog.
Love you too, bro. And keep doing what you're doing because it's necessary.
I appreciate that. Don't hang up yet.
Yeah, for sure.